Hello and howdy, everyone. Because the sequel is coming out soon, I wanted to watch Anchorman, the legend of Ron Burgundy, just to refresh my memory. And, you know, I was in a good mood, so I wanted to continue that good mood, and so I wanted to stick with a good comedy. And I think it is kind of a classic comedy. It's certainly a highlight of the last, it may be older than 10 years. I was going to say a highlight of the last decade. But it actually may be older than a decade now. Well, I don't know. This says copyright 2004. So, I don't know. Maybe we're just right at it. Maybe it came out in 2003. Anywho, I did see this in the theater. I'm not sure what number of times this is of watching it. I'd say it has to be under 10, but maybe around 8. I don't know. I think I watched it plenty when it came out on disc. I did see it in the theater, only the one time. I don't think I even bothered with renting it. I just bought the film. So I at least probably watched it a couple to a few times after purchasing it, and have probably over the last decade seen it, a couple times. So I don't think I've seen it more than 10 times, but probably not less than 7. So it's got to be right in there somewhere. I think it's kind of, I don't know. I was about to say that I think it's Will Ferrell's crowning achievement. I suppose he has a lot of his career left to go, so I'm not sure about that, but I certainly think it's his funniest film. I'd say the competition would have to be Talladega Nights. And of course, you almost can't count it because he's such an enduring character, but Buddy the Elf, he's Elf. And you can't deny Buddy. You love Buddy. So Will Ferrell does have some great characters that he's portrayed. I think Ron Burgundy kind of set the bar, though. I think it's a perfect match for Will Ferrell's comedy. Will Ferrell did co-write this with the director Adam McKay, right? That's the name? Yes, Adam McKay. I believe they were kind of like writing partners throughout their professional career, through the improv stages, and then they worked together on Saturday Night Live. Wrote some of their classic sketches together, and then started to write films together. And I think this is the best one they've done together, even though they've done some quality work. I think this is the best they've done yet. I am slightly nervous about the sequel, just because it's been such a long time and there's so much talent involved. There's so much kind of high-powered talent involved as well. This is produced by Judd Apatow, who, is kind of a power player. Maybe he's not as big as he was 5 years ago, but he's certainly well-respected and certainly a power player in Hollywood, and, this is his next film. So it's like you've got a bunch of people who are, kind of credited as bigwigs and geniuses kind of in their own right. And now they're all returning to a product that they've done like 10 years later. And, I can't help but be nervous, that they're going to tarnish, which is, of course, the danger and why you wouldn't want to do it, and why you have to be extra careful and have to believe that they would have to, take that care and wouldn't even approach the property without, a decent story. So I do have faith in them, but I am nervous that, they will tarnish the reputation of this film. It's hilarious. I have no problems giving it an 8, maybe a 9, but it's not, it may have been the company I watched it with. I watched this with one of my favorite films of all time, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which is also like the funniest movie of all time. And so maybe I was on a laughter high from Planes, Trains, and then I switched to this, and nothing is going to be as funny as Planes, Trains, but this is still pretty damn funny. It's a little bit slower moving. I guess it's a little bit more hit and miss. But again, I'm comparing it to one of the great comedies of all time, which I know I shouldn't, but I just kind of can't help because that's how I watched it that day. But it's definitely funny through and through. It doesn't have any third act troubles usually, I think, especially these days. A comedy has a great trouble with the third act. You know, it really focuses on the laugh with the first, and then you just see them diminish as they become more wrapped up with finishing the story that they thought of, which is sometimes totally obligatory. And now they're trying to wrap up this story, and they forget about the laughs. Anchorman's not that way. In fact, it has, I think, one of the best endings of some time. It kind of, in a way, a Deus Ex Machina kind of ending. It's hilarious. I'll always remember seeing this in the theater. I actually saw this I think it came out at Christmas time, because I saw it while I was home. And I usually only go home for Christmas or sometime during the summer. And I saw it in my hometown theater. Actually, I saw it, I wish I could forget this, but I saw it in the theater in my hometown, and there were some teenage punks in the movie. I don't know, 12 years old, 13 years old. I, at the time, probably was around the age of 25 or 24. And I thought the film was hilarious. I went and I was knocked out. I laughed a ton. And the teenage punks made fun of me, for laughing at the movie. They would mock my laugh. And so I had to deal with, this group of 6 teenagers, basically making fun of me for the duration of the film, or at least the last half of the film. I don't know. I guess they didn't think it was funny. They thought it would be better to make fun of me than to watch the film. I don't know. I'll never forget that, obviously. I guess you just can't forget 6 14-year-olds making fun of you, That probably stays with you for a while. But what else? Gosh, it's got a great cast, fantastic cast. I'm glad I have some help here. Of course, we have Will Ferrell in kind of a defining role. Christina Applegate, Paul Rudd, Steve Carell, David Koechner, Fred Willard. I think that's a good, round up there. Steve Carell. I can't remember if he was on The Office by now, but this is certainly a kind of a defining role for him. I think, people probably think of Brick, maybe when they think of Anchorman. I think the quote that jumps to mind from Anchorman, if someone says Anchorman, I usually either go straight to, I love Lamp, which which is Carell, or I'm kind of a big deal, which is Burgundy. And yeah, I'm kind of a big deal is probably the more, appropriate quote, because it deals with the character and is from the main star. But I don't know, just something I hear Anchorman, I hear I love Lamp. It's just, maybe there's some a little bit of slow parts. I don't know, not really. It's just it's an hour and 38 minutes. It's pretty quick. It goes right by. Fantastic cameo performances. Jack Black has got one of the best cameos ever in this film. That's how I roll. That's another fantastic quote. Highly quotable. I'm sure they just whale's vagina. That's also, God, it's just brilliant. I'm sure they just left the cameras rolling and just had everyone shouting out lines for them to repeat. and just came up with the most ridiculous things for them to say. It's just all the performances are fantastic. They all are, odd characters, well-defined characters, but all just ridiculous and have very odd things to say. It's a period piece. I think all the costume design, it takes place, I guess the late 70s in San Diego. And I feel like I'm taken to San Diego in the 70s. The production design's really good. It's just a good movie. Just a solid comedy, and is aged very well. It's still very hilarious. I'm just sitting here thinking about more and more, as I think about the film, just all these people come back, all the hilariousness comes back, and it's just too much to mention, it's just too much to mention. Vince Vaughn, Luke Wilson, Ben Stiller, Tim Robbins, it's just filled with hilarious people being hilarious, and, what else could you want? Yeah, I'm, again, nervous, but yet looking forward to the sequel. I think it'll be a big hit. I know we'll all be, that day it comes out. So, yeah. Definitely have to recommend it to anyone who hasn't seen it, if you haven't for some reason. If you're a Will Ferrell fan, this is kind of why he has a career, in film at least. So yeah, okay, I don't have a problem giving it a 9. It's kind of, a classic. I think a very defining comedy for the time. Certainly impacted, comedy at the time. And again, brought, Judd Apatow to the forefront. Will Ferrell became a, big star after this. I can't remember if around this, if Elf was like a year before or a year later, but obviously Elf has a lot to do with that, as Elf is still kind of a classic, a Christmas classic at that. So it gets guaranteed, saturation airplay at least once a year. So I think that has a lot to do with Will Ferrell's success as well. But certainly you can't count out Ron Burgundy, and we will be seeing more from him. So yeah, okay, I think I've said pretty much all. A good soundtrack, really good soundtrack. Just funny, delightful. I don't know what else to say. I have no problems giving it a 9 just because it's so funny. But I suppose, there are some lulls that don't, make it perfection. But, what is perfection? So, okay, I'll stop talking now. That's Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy. I'll give it a solid 9. Thanks much.